Hello everybody, Matt here with day 7 of this year's September experiment, or as I've been calling it, what did you read yesterday? Again, it's a false statement because I read The Prince is in the Villainess Way today. So this is a book by a mangaka called Minami Shiina. It's actually though based on another light novel, second day in a row, by a writer called Hiiro No Ame. And essentially, I had very low to no expectations going in this book, and I ran into some stuff very early on with it that made me go, ooh, I can see why this one was a quid in that Vinted haul. Essentially the story is, there is a lady who is called Iris, and she is a princess, and she's not just any princess, but she is known as a wise princess, which is someone who can use magic, as established very early on. And the opening pages of this book are essentially her going through a breakup with a prince that she's engaged to, because he's been cheating on her. And she's like, well, you know, I'm not going to have this. I'm the wise princess. And she seems to have the better of him in this conversation, and you think that she's going to manipulate him. But then what ends up happening is a mysterious figure is in the shadows, and her seeing this person, who she calls Al, immediately triggers a flashback, and it goes, what is this, a memory? As you see all of these things flash before her eyes, and essentially you realise very quickly that she has been reincarnated into an alternate version of her world, but in the past, which was a bit of a red flag for me, I will be honest. Again, I'm not a big fan of isekai, I'm not a fan of reincarnation stories, and also just, it felt very implausible, like 20 pages into the book, I'm like, why would you be reincarnated in the same world with the same person? Is he going to be a reincarnation as well? And no, it establishes very early on that it is the same world, she is in the same timeline, but she is 18 when she should be 13. Again, I'm not a reincarnation scientist. I do not have a degree in reincarnationology, but that math doesn't really add up, that she died in the future, then was reincarnated in the past in the same timeline. Again, not into Shintoism, Buddhism, Zen, Taoism, anything like that, and so I can't really tell you why that would work, but you just kind of have to go with it for the sake of the story. And so after this red flag had been raised, after the prince is in the villainess's way, when she doesn't really seem to be a villainess, and it's quite actually early on established that he is the villain, then I was like, okay, the title doesn't make sense, the premise doesn't make sense. Then he asks her the important question, hey, why did you call me Al? And I, for one, hate getting Paul Simoned, and so I was just like, okay, this book doesn't have a lot going for it. What the heck is going to go on here that is going to change this around? And so I kept reading, as I want to do. And I was like, okay, let me try and at least figure out this book's logic about reincarnation, because she's like, I went back in time and got reincarnated. I'm not making this up. Those are real words. And I thought, okay, I just need to turn off the bit of my brain that wants to dissect this, that wants to try and figure out, because the book isn't really that sure. And what essentially happens is, through reincarnation, she seems to remember stuff about her past life and when she was a lady called Fiona. And she seems to remember not only the ability to use a sword because of that, but also these very specific dance moves that would be to this region that she was originally from. And so she wins over our good friend Al, as I will unfortunately have to call him. I guess I am Chevy Chase. And essentially ends up wooing him in some way, even though he doesn't really seem romantically interested in her. There are a couple of will they won't they moments. And he essentially says, well, you know, you seem dignified, you seem like a person, a person who could teach young Fiona, let me take you back to my kingdom. And so, yeah, lots of dance moves that are, you know, referenced as being like sword fights, and a lot of tension being built as they continue to dance on, as, you know, they exchange words and longing glances at each other. And Alvin, as his actual name is, decides, okay, I'm going to take you to this place. And so as she is travelling back, she's introduced to his handmaiden, who ends up developing a little bit of a crush on Iris after she saves her. And, you know, it's all building, and you're like, okay, where is this going? And so you get back to the kingdom after he saves them from a load of goblins, and essentially you start to realise, actually, young Fiona may not know everything that was going on, and therefore Iris might not know everything that was going on. What is exactly going on, I'm not entirely sure, but it's actually showing that Alvin may not be the bad guy, even though Iris thinks he is. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that is a volume 2 or 3 twist. Again, lots of dramatic tension, lots of like romantic, oh, will they, won't they moments, but she hates him, but maybe she's actually attracted to him, which, you know, for some people is bread and butter. Generally speaking, I kind of got sucked into it by the end, to be honest. I don't think I'm going to read the second and third volume unless I find them again for £1. But I was like, okay, actually, you know what? Sometimes you just need a bit of trash. As with Junie Tyson yesterday, if you just switch off your brain, this is enjoyable enough. Again, the art is pretty good. It kind of goes a lot of places. There's a lot of romance. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of generally very well-designed characters, much to my surprise. You know, all look amazing in very elegant costumes and stuff. And so I was like, okay, maybe this could be fine. Maybe if this is for you, then it is what it is. If you can switch off, again, your brain about the whole reincarnation back in time thing, I genuinely think this seems alright. And I was kind of surprised by that. But, you know, it isn't for me, I will admit. I'm not going to read the second and third volume, like I said. I think, though, it may be up to 4 or 5 now. But, you know, for £1, it was entertaining. I don't think it's a bad book by any stretch of the imagination. Just, you know, a bit nonsensical at the start. And again, I question why she's a villainess when he's actually the villain, or is at least believed to be. All she is really guilty of, in the crappy way that sometimes women in these kinds of stories are, is that she doesn't smile. And so much so, the guy who is cheating on her at the start even says to her, just like, had you smiled more, I probably wouldn't have been attracted to Helena. And it's just like, okay. She seems like a nice person, and she smiles plenty in this book. So again, it is what it is. All in all, like I said, not going to think about it more than this, but generally, okay book. I was quite surprised by that. Anyways, that has been my quick review of The Prince is in the Villainess Way. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have read on with this book, or if you think, actually, there's some other similar books to this that I could recommend that are better than this, because I know villainesses are a hot topic at the moment. I can at least see 2 Yuri volumes I have on the shelf that I haven't read yet that have that in the title, then please let me know in the comments below. Anyways, I will be back tomorrow, everybody, with something probably entirely random, I need to decide yet, and also a video that kind of recaps week 1 and kind of my thoughts on making these videos and kind of what I'm going to aim to do in the second week to try and give myself a bit of focus. I will share that with everyone just as a matter that we're all on the same page. Anyways, speak to you tomorrow, and be sure until then to read on. Take care. Bye-bye.